It's been a long time since we talked about the NORTHSTAR. Let's do a NORTHSTAR video, guys. Let's get started. So I apologize for the rain. It may make you want to go to the bathroom. I do apologize for that because of the sound of rain and water and things trickling. It's very rainy and cold today. As you can see, my Cadillac has rain all over it. I just drove it in. So that's basically the weather we have today. But we got a story going on with this Cadillac. You guys have seen it in a previous video. I got it Eurasian Bob. It was kind of an auction, as is, where is type deal. I got a really good price on it. But there's also going to be some things to fix. I've been enjoying it. I've been driving it. I absolutely love it. It rides like a Camry, but it's fast and it looks beautiful. It's a really awesome, awesome car. In one of Hoovie's videos, and I think in one of the previous one of our videos, you saw that I pulled the oil pan and everything off and resealed this. But unfortunately, the rear main seal is leaking on this, so the oil leaks still continue. And while I had it apart, I noticed that two of the main bolts, they weren't even tight. The threads are damaged. There were several other bolts that are stripped out. That told me that somebody had already been in this engine that's in here. They stripped it out and said, screw it. I decided to just put it together and drive it and enjoy it. If it grenaded the engine, it's not that big of a deal because you see that one sitting over there. With the stripped out threads and the rear main seal, the engine's going to have to come out to fix everything. And I decided if I'm going to pull the engine and go through all that trouble, I am not going to put it back in without doing NORTHSTAR Performance head studs and main studs and basically bulletproofing the engine. Now this one, as I mentioned, has stripped out threads and I really don't want to helicoil it. What I'm going to do is pull this motor and mothball it. I'm going to put it in the back and store it because parts are insanely hard to find for this car. This is the LH2, they have them in the SRX, they have them in the XLR, and that's pretty much it. The oil pan and several different things on that engine are really only pertains to this car or the SRX. I contacted Jake from NORTHSTAR Performance. He's going to be sponsoring this series of videos with a set of head studs and a set of main studs, which are patented. There are no other companies out there making these because it is copyrighted, it's patented. I know that these work because I had a 2000 DeVille that had a blown head gasket. I was going to have to pull the motor. I said, I'm not going back together with, hopefully it will hold. I needed to know it's going to absolutely 100% hold. And you only get that with the NORTHSTAR Performance head stud kit called a Sure Grip kit. It's currently in the mail and on its way to me, but we're going to go ahead and start this series off. We're going to take a look at this engine, which also comes from a sponsor of this video, J&J Auto Wrecking in Marshallville, Ohio. It's kind of interesting. I knew that I needed to do a different engine. I wanted to do one that's bulletproof. All the threads are clean. Everything's good. I was like, where am I going to find one of these? I knew when I ordered from J&J, I wouldn't have to even check it. I don't even have to do anything. I know it's good. Everything I've ever gotten from them is good. But when I got a hold of John at J&J Auto Wrecking, I asked him, I said, do you happen to have an XLR or an engine or anything like that? He said, bro, we don't have one or two or three. We have 39 of them. And I actually had to have him repeat himself. I was like, wait a minute, 39 XLRs? He said, yeah. I guess the owner of J&J has gone out and bought up a bunch of XLRs. So, if you have one of these cars and you're having trouble finding parts, you really shouldn't think about anywhere else. You need to go to J&J Auto Wrecking's website, contact John. They have 39 of these in the salvage yard. They will have the parts you're looking for. So definitely check them out. There will be a link in the description to NORTHSTAR Performance head studs and also to J&J Auto Wrecking if you're interested in doing those things. Now, to clarify that these parts are hard to find, but yet J&J has 39 of these cars, that's kind of a rarity. You can contact multiple salvage yards and even scour eBay for parts for these. And you can spend hours and days looking for parts and you may not find them. That's why I say you really need to check out J&J, because in a world of parts being so hard to find for these cars, there's a little bubble of parts, tons of parts at J&J, so check them out. Now, why would a salvage yard have so many of XLRs in their salvage yard? And the reason why is because if these cars get into even a slight fender bender, it is so easy to completely total this car. The headlights, taillights, things of that nature, some of the parts are unobtainium, and if you do find them, they're $5,000 for this, $2,000 for that, $3,000 for that. And as soon as you start tallying up all these parts, it's just almost not worth it. And there's some body panels and some things to these cars, they're just not obtainable. It's not worth fixing. It's very common for insurance companies to write these things off as totaled junk. I guess it's a bad thing, but it's a good thing because there's a lot of them at J&J if you need parts. So let's take a look under the hood of the XLR. Oh look, another NORTHSTAR, an LH2 just like the one that's on the engine stand. Mine happens to have 63,000 miles on it. The one J&J has provided has only 32,000 miles on it. It's almost a new engine. This one runs great, but the oil leaks are getting insanely annoying with the rear main seal. And it just scares me with those stripped out main bolt threads, which is a common issue. Also, the main bolts like to break in half on these if you take them apart. So while we're working on the engine that's on the engine stand, I can continue to drive this vehicle. But like I said, there's nothing wrong with this engine as far as running other than those bolts in the rear main seal. So now we know where the engine's going to go right there. This one is identical to that one. Let's head on over to the J&J motor. This engine has zero wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's absolutely perfect. And I'm going to tear it apart and pull the heads off. Isn't that crazy, guys? But it's not so crazy, because that is the answer to the NORTHSTAR head gasket problem. We're going to be pulling this apart and doing the NORTHSTAR head studs on top, which will be here and over there on the heads. Then we'll be flipping it over on the bottom and taking all the main bolts off and pulling the lower oil pan or the cradle apart. Cleaning it all up, resealing it, which is a common leak point. And we're going to remove those bolts permanently and put also studs on the bottom. Let me show you on this engine where the common leaks are. In the next video, we will have the heads off. We'll show you the head bolts and everything that are in here. It currently has the stock General Motors head bolts in it. The head studs are such a huge upgrade. Some of the common leaks, the NORTHSTARs always seem to have oil leaks. And here they are where they come from. This is the lower oil pan. And then there's a gasket right here. They can leak from there. But in between the lower oil pan and the upper oil pan, there's this little gap right here. That's called the oil manifold. So here we see the oil manifold right here. Is this little gap between the gasket and the upper oil pan. Is actually ports where oil flows through and goes to the block. It can leak out on the driver's side especially. The third of the fourth common oil leaks, number 3, is right here where the upper oil pan bolts to the block. So there's 1, 2, 3 leaks that are very common, and we'll move back here to the rear main seal. There you can see the rear main seal on the crankshaft. Obviously the transmission has to come off the engine to get to that. So while we have this apart on the bottom end to do the conversion to main studs, the common fix is you do put a new gasket and everything, but you also add to that is General Motors gray RTV. That's the common fix, that you go around the lower oil pan, around the edges, the outside edges of the oil manifold, and also a little bit on the upper manifold. And that with a new rear main seal, and oil leaks should be taken care of for a very, very long time. I definitely want to drive this XLR. It is so nice. I enjoy it so much. I'd like to get an engine that's completely bulletproofed. I will no longer have to think about what if it blows a head gasket. With Jake's NORTHSTAR Performance head studs, that thought in your mind can be gone forever. Literally forever. So I won't have to worry about that. And also the common issues on the main bolts that can snap or also strip out the threads. That'll be gone forever with main studs. And I'm going to reseal everything. Outside of those items, the NORTHSTAR is actually a very good engine. It has good power, good fuel economy. Other than those issues we just mentioned, they really don't break. They don't fail miserably, or timing chains or things failing like crazy. Like a GM 3.6. Those are garbage. Don't buy those.
They did put the starter in an oh-so-fun location.
Yes, let's take a look at the starter. Just like an LS400 Lexus, guys. Right here, this little nose sticking out right here is actually the nose of the starter. And if you peek around through these wiring harnesses, you can see a gold-colored little canister-shaped thing underneath the intake. That's where our starter is at. You have to pull the plastic intake off to get to the starter. But it's really not that hard. It's several bolts, some electrical connectors, a fuel line, and it comes right up. It's really not that hard to do. You just have to get your mind, say, I just want to get this over with and get it done. I will not be replacing the starter on this J&J engine because it is only 32,000 miles on it. There's no reason to. And if it does fail, it's not going to be that big of a deal pulling the intake. The NORTHSTAR does get a bad rap. And if you're not mechanically inclined, or if you really don't want to spend the money on doing all this bulletproofing, they're really an engine you probably shouldn't buy. It's easy to say, oh, it'd be so cool if you could LS swap that. I don't know. I mean, the amount of work involved is insane to make an LS motor work in that. And yes, it would be more power. But think about it for a minute. In the early 2000s, they had the Pontiac Firebird, Firehawk, 305 horsepower. That thing is looked at like a monster. Wow, that thing's so fast. This has that much power. It's not a slug. It's not slow. I can get out on this thing on the highway and be up to 80 miles an hour very, very quickly. It weighs literally as much as a Corvette because it is a C6 Corvette underneath. So the argument, these are slow, they're junk. Well, no, they're not slow and they're not junk. They're actually a very good motor. They were slow in the DeVille because it was so heavy, and it also didn't have variable valve timing, as you can see here. These little magnetic actuators. This is the LH2 motor. It's geared for 320 horsepower with variable valve timing and some different changes here or there. It's actually a very good motor. It's very fast. This is fast and as much power almost as a 1997 C5 Corvette. So to say it's slow, that's inaccurate. It's not slow. Now the question would arise, Car Wizard, are you going to start doing NORTHSTAR head studs for everybody? Under some occasions, I probably will. Jake from NORTHSTAR Performance has also informed me that in 2023 they're looking into a program where you can remove your own engine and ship the engine to them. They will do the full bulletproofing and take care of all the things you want to do. Then they will ship it back to you and you put your own engine back into your car. That's definitely something you want to check with them about. Again, the link is in the description for NORTHSTAR Performance and also for J&J Auto Wrecking if you're looking for salvage parts. If it's an XLR or something that's got some value, like this is easily a $20,000 car or more now, it's worth it to fix this. Yes, I would be interested in doing that for one of these cars. We can do the head stud, the main studs and things, and we'll also be using the NORTHSTAR Performance parts. But for a 2000 DeVille that's only worth 3,500 bucks, and you want to put $5 grand or more or $6 grand into going through all of this work, that may not be worth it. We probably would not be interested in doing that because if you get into an accident, the insurance company is not going to give you the money that you have into your engine. Only the $3,500 that the car is worth. You will lose your tail on it. But if you're doing the work, it is worth it. I could say on a 2000 Cadillac DeVille, if you're pulling the motor, you're doing the head studs, you know what you're doing, it totally would be worth it. I would be interested in doing that myself. You're going to see, once we get into putting these head studs in, I'm going to demonstrate with the fixture and how you drill the holes out and tap them and do all those things. We're going to show that in this video series. If you don't know what you're doing, you can literally ruin your engine block, like unsavably ruined. So you definitely want to make sure you're confident in your mechanical skills if you're going to try this yourself. But definitely we're going to show what it looks like. The question will be answered, what does that mean, you head studded your Northstar? You'll definitely know the answer to that question after this series of videos is done. You definitely want to hit the subscribe button on that. Now we will be pulling the engine out of the engine bay. Some people will say pull the engine and the rear drivetrain and everything like a Corvette out the bottom. It's literally a rolling chassis or a rolling powertrain. I'm not going to go that far. I'm just going to pull the motor out right here, put this bulletproof one in, and put this motor in the back for storage. If I ever need parts or anything like that, I will always have extra injectors, extra intake, all kinds of extra parts. One thing that also doesn't work on this car is the convertible top, but it's raining, it's winter time, it's going to be cold and snowing soon. I'm really not concerned about whether the top works or not. I will be concerned about getting this taken care of, have the bulletproof engine put in, and then when springtime comes around, I can take care of getting the convertible top fixed and have a fully functional, bulletproofed, beautiful XLR. One thing to keep in mind is if you do this service on an XLR, especially with the head studs, you can add value to the total overall value of your XLR or your SRX or whatever car it is that you have. You can mention in the ad when you sell your car, the engine has been bulletproof with Northstar Performance head studs, main studs, and that will be a sigh of relief for someone looking to buy one of these. They'll be like, oh, it has that in it? Great. I don't have to worry about it anymore. So keep that in mind as well. Again, the engine comes from J&J. We do have another engine from J&J that's actually in the Malibu. It is the V12 out of a Jaguar. That project has not been abandoned. It is on pause. The 308 is currently at Polk Performance being tuned. As soon as that's done, the Malibu is coming down and we will get back on that. Thanks to J&J for the V12. Also for this 4.6 LH2. If you're curious what kind of tools we're going to use to do all this work, check my Amazon affiliates link in the description below. We get a small cut and we really appreciate it. And you definitely want to hit the subscribe button because this series of videos is going to answer a lot of questions about Northstars. Thanks for watching.